The FCC Chair is Brendan Carr, and he rose to prominence in 2024 for criticising what he calls censorship of right-wing voices. Now, once he's in office, he vowed to dismantle the censorship cartel. Arguably, this is part of it. ABC suspended Kimmel shortly after these comments by Carr were made on a right-wing podcast.
You know, when you look at the conduct that has taken place by Jimmy Kimmel, it appears to be some of the sickest conduct possible. I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct, to take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or, you know, there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead.
Nothing like an open threat. Who will rid me of these troublesome priests comes to mind. These kind of threats are not traditional for the FCC. For most of its 90-year history, it regulated indecent material. So, 73 took action for a radio station airing comedian George Carlin's 7 dirty word monologue. A listener complained when his son heard the profanity. The case went all the way to the Supreme Court. In 2004, the FCC was responsible for finding CBS after Janet Jackson's infamous wardrobe malfunction during her Super Bowl halftime performance. She fell out of her dress, basically. Tom Wheeler was chair of the FCC under President Obama, now visiting fellow at the Brookings Institution. The reality is, we can play this any, as the chair said, any which way you like. You can interpret it any way you like. You can be as hard as you like, as soft as you like, as draconian as you like. It just depends on who's in the chair and how they view it.
Richard, I think you have just hit the key thing, that Brendan Carr keeps going around talking about the, quote, public interest. The statute that governs broadcasting in the United States says the FCC should make its decisions based on the, quote, public interest, convenience, and necessity. And he says we need to act on that public interest, but he doesn't define that public interest other than what appeals to him and to President Trump. You know, interestingly enough, shortly after he was appointed to chair, or nominated as chairman, he gave an interview to CNBC in which he said, you know, we really should have a rulemaking at the FCC that adds more precision to what that term public interest really means. He's yet to do anything about it, but he's been terrific at bending whatever that means to his own will.
So let's take the Kimmel's words. In your view, and there's two aspects to it. There's the commercial aspect in terms of affiliates pulling it out because they don't like it on a commercial basis. But from a regulatory point of view, do you believe what Kimmel said comes anywhere close to sort of requiring regulatory action at the top level?
Well, I think the thing that I'm qualified to opine on is not necessarily to parse what Kimmel was saying, but to parse what Brendan Carr has been saying. And you played an excerpt, but he went on to say that talking to licensed broadcasters that he licenses, he said, this is garbage and you need to step up. Now, that's about as coercive, as intimidating as you can possibly get for a regulator to say to those he's regulating.
So when the public interest requirement of the FCC's mandate comes into conflict with the First Amendment right of a network to say, no, I mean, this is in the public interest. And anyway, even if it's not really in the public interest, we have a First Amendment right to say so. Which in the competing balance of rights, who wins?
Well, it's great. It's interesting that you raised that, because if, in fact, the affiliates for ABC had stood up and said, okay, try to do that. You do that, we'll see you in court. There is no doubt in my mind that the court would have said that's a violation of the First Amendment, and that's a violation of the FCC's statute, Section 326 of the statute. And one of the brilliant things that Brendan Carr has been doing is he has been exercising this kind of coercive intimidation without getting to the point where he gives the other side something to appeal to the courts. And the courts, as you know, have been the great leveler in the Trump administration. And Brendan Carr has developed this coercive technique where, he's saying, you talked about, you listen to him say the easy way or the hard way. It's
Right.
kind of like the mob boss saying, that's a nice license you've got here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it.
I'm grateful to you, sir. Thank you. I think you just put it beautifully. Just what we needed to hear tonight. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.